All right, guys, back to Money Talks. I have my good friend Alex. He's my good colleague from college. I guess you could say that I used to see you in passing a lot, but uh,
Right.
he's in HR now. So he's done the thing. He's seen cases. He's been through the process, but most importantly, he's seen so many different and worked in this industry of HR and interviewing. And I mean, I personally kind of silently watched his career kind of blossom from when he just recruited through working for. I think you worked for Centene for a little bit. I think
Yes,
you
sir.
worked for several people in St. Louis that kind of pretty large brands when you think about bringing people on. And he's here to kind of share those expertise. First, I definitely want to thank each one of you for dropping in, being a part of the group, engaging, comments, questions, just taking advantage of all we can, really push the group to the limits, get what you came for, get some things you didn't even know you was coming for. And I definitely appreciate all over 1,200 of you now. If this is your first time on watching this on YouTube, go ahead and hit that subscribe button, hit that like, share a comment. We'll definitely try to connect with you as well. I'm going to jump right in. We had a question already, and I definitely want to address that first. And then, first, Alex, tell us a little bit about yourself, and then I'll get to the question.
Sure. Hey, thanks again, Jonathan, for having me on, man. It's an honor and pleasure to be a part of this to spread the news of what I've been blessed to have garnered over my career. Um, me and Jonathan been to school together at SIUE. Um, I have my bachelor's from SIUE in employee relations through sociology, and my master's is in human resource management. And I'm currently studying for my PHR, which is PHR certification, which is professional human resources. And I have many years in recruitment, talent acquisition, um, starting from the headhunting um, recruitment space to working with Fortune 500 companies, Fortune 50 companies such as Centene, Pfizer, um, and Boeing, to name a few. So, and a mixture of aerospace, of course, healthcare, engineering, so all of the above. And I'm very privileged to be able to help those out with information that I've acquired over the years to make themselves better and become better versions of themselves.
No, that's phenomenal. So guys, just to help you if you haven't checked along. So one of the first lives I did as a joint, I did with a good friend of mine. She all about the resume, all about getting you in the door. Well,
Mhm.
this conversation, and like I kind of briefed you guys over the last couple of weeks, we're gonna try to take things to the next level. It's all about how can we get you in that 100K plus role? What does that look like? And the thing about it is having an interview, or I'm sorry, getting that resume, especially now, getting that resume tight. I mean, there's 20 some million, 20 to 22 million people out of work right now. So you're not up against college kids, and you're up against experienced people. You're up against people who have been in the industry that you might be trying to crack your way into. You're up against, people who have very thorough resumes. So
Right.
the interview is your place to really kind of take that hour and a half to really set yourself apart. The good part about it is, as the age old saying, most people don't read the resume. They expect you to tell them. So if your resume got you in there, this conversation is more to take you to that next level. So one of the first questions that popped up was, how do you attack that tell me about yourself question? And I know I get that all the time. I have my thoughts. I definitely would love to hear how, as a professional, what are things you're looking for? How would you prepare someone to get ready for that question?
Oh, definitely. Great question. And to piggyback off the resume approach in getting to the interview part, it all begins with research. Your resume is what got you in the door, but even before the resume, it requires research on not only the company but the job description. I like to tell people that the job description is basically like a cheat sheet for the test that you're trying to pass, and the test is getting to the interview. So everyone should have a different resume to get into that job because no job is the same, and every company is different. So having that resume tailored to that specific position will greatly set you apart. Two, that tell me about yourself question is a great segue from the resume because you really want to speak to the job description and how your background would be a benefit to that company. It should be loosely based on like who you are. It should never pertain to political or religious beliefs. You want to keep that out of the conversation completely because you never know how that could come off. Even in an environment such as a faith-based organization, that could lend you to speak to religions somewhat. But if you don't even have that same shared religious beliefs as that organization, you're still caught in a juxtaposition. So I would say stay away from uh, religious conversation, any political conversation. And like I said, that question should be about how you and your experiences in your life, even you can make up things as far as a fictitious story about how you something in your past has garnered your experience to be the best fit for that position. So it's all about selling yourself to the company because once you get past the resume, it's all about selling yourself. That's the all of it in a nutshell. You're trying to sell yourself to the person in front of you. Your resume told them a brief description that said this person has the skills. I want to talk to them a little bit further to get more information about who they are. At that point, it's all about the best show you can put on. Because once you get onto the floor, every company has to train you. Even if you done the same thing with different companies for the last 20 years, every company does something different. And they have to train you on how they do things. So it's all about getting in the door, putting on your best face, giving them the most personality, giving them the best version of you as possible, and trying to win them over. You take whatever clues you can from the vibe of the room. And I say, like when you walk into an office or to um, an interview, especially if you're in someone's personal office, you kind of want to be a detective. You want to look around. What clues can you talk about? What things can you bring up that someone else didn't talk about before? Like they got a picture of their family and it's a football next to it. Bring something up about a sport, even if you don't know how to play sports. Just say I love sports, and just you have to make that connection because after the resume, it's all about what sets you apart. And going back to that question about tell me about yourself, yourself should be definitely how you are connected with that position and how your experiences have led you to that position. I would even go as far as making up a story about how you've gone through training just to say that you've gotten even more experience to further your skill set for that position. And once you do that, I think that's a great way to be able to segment yourself from from the population who's already applied for that position.
Yeah, it's interesting. You said that. Yeah, I think one of the things that I mean, we both went to grad school at the same place, Webster.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things, and I forget which class it was, but they were it was a real interesting concept that hey, everyone, no one can check your story. you know,
Exactly.
no one can check your story. They can only get your story from you. You can when you're talking about these high level positions. Number one, they're not going to waste their time calling everybody. But number two, if you're telling them something and you could be way left field, they can't check your story. They're not going to tell you you're wrong. It's more, are you confident? Do you know what you're talking about? And are the skills that you're trying to present in your story or in the context that you're delivering, does that fit what they're looking for? Now, that's another good piece of, hey, you spoke about do the research and I'm real big about the bringing things into clarity for somebody. So what I call research and what you might call research is might be different. So if I'm looking for a job and I'm in a pandemic, number one, if I'm in a pandemic, I'm definitely applying like 8 jobs a day, just
Right.
flat out. You know what I mean? But
Right.
if you get to that level, and if it's a company that you don't know, but it's your dream job, well, how do you know how to answer certain questions? Because you're trying to figure out, number one, they're trying to figure out culture fit as well
Right.
as skill fit. So
Right.
when you talk about research, yeah, you want to look out, you know what I'm saying, on the company website and see what you can glean from that. But some of that research might be taking, actually reaching out to some people via Facebook, LinkedIn, whatever, to try to get a real clear picture of, hey, what is this company about and what is this particular role about? And you'd be surprised how the internet can lend yourself. And I wanted to be able to kind of speak to those steps because I know, like I said, I followed your journey a lot, and you spoke a lot about utilizing LinkedIn to its full capacity. You spoke a lot about networking. And I know these are very, very general terms, and people don't understand what does networking really mean. If I went and talked to somebody and they work at a company that I want to work at, and I don't know anything more about that company, or I'm no closer to the position that I was looking for when I left them, I did it wrong.
Right.
What are your thoughts about that whole researching into the networking as you're trying to prepare to figure out how to give you the ammunition to develop those answers?
Oh, great question. I would say the net from the networking side of that question, going to LinkedIn, of course, but and reaching out to the people, because when you apply for a job, depending on the level of access you have with LinkedIn, it gives you the person who posted that job. So you're speaking directly to the recruiter for that position, which is great. Also, reach out to the people who also work for that company, because you never know who can get you closer to the person who can view your resume. So, and also, it doesn't hurt to reach out and connect yourself with people that those people know, because you never know. Like, oh, someone in the finance department can be on LinkedIn and like, oh, this person, I heard about a position that was open. Oh, this person looks like they could be a good fit. Let me pass their resume along. You never know the power of just meeting and introducing yourself to someone that's close to that position is monumentous. It's huge. And when I say like do research, like also like look at the reviews. Glassdoor is a huge platform, and they give, I would say, close to accurate news reviews of the company. Look at at the model, and like I said, go back to the job description, because that, especially when you're going into an interview for a six-figure position, they're asking questions based on what's already out there. A lot of times, where people go wrong is where they just go off the course, go off road when they're asking you questions about like understanding the culture of the company. Like if you go into like an urban outfitters position, you're gonna be like, okay, I need to beef up my verbiage on outdoorsy stuff. I'll be camping in my backyard or something. Bring up a cute story with your kid in the backyard. You know what I'm saying? Make it interesting. Make it fit to the culture of that company. You're not going to have that same story if you're going to work for Goldman Sachs. You know what I'm saying? You got to tell your conversation to what they're looking for get a good vibe of what the company is looking for. Not just looking at the about us, but looking at different websites, looking at reviews of the company, looking at how the people who are on LinkedIn, how they're dressed, what are their hobbies, where did they go to school at. You know what I'm saying? Doing your due diligence, especially with the person who, let's say you're in the position you got the interview. Do your research on that specific person. Not just the whole company, but including that person. Like one thing that I can speak to personally is when I was interviewing for a position at Ascension. Also, that's the world's largest Catholic health organization. What I did was not only did I do my due diligence with learning about the culture. It's a faith-based organization, so they open up every meeting with a prayer. They close one every day with a prayer. But also, the guy who was interviewing me, he graduated from West Point. So I brought that up in the conversation, and he was very impressed with that because not too many people do go that far to figure out who they're being interviewed by, and just bringing up like what he did during college and understanding like who he was as a person. Because when you're speaking to someone who looks at resumes and people on a daily basis,
Right.
you have to do your best to stand out.
Mm-hmm.
And the best way to do that is asking them questions as well, not being a one-sided conversation, because no one wants to come in, bring someone in who isn't a critical thinker,
You're
who
right.
doesn't know how to be able to push the envelope forward or take on new challenges and being somewhat brave about it.
Mm-hmm.
So just taking all those nuggets into the networking and researching part of the equation is the best way to segment yourself from the rest of the population when you're applying for the position.
I mean, it's so good. And just like I said, I mean, there are so many people, especially now because of the pandemic. I mean, everything's pretty much online, but I honestly, truly believe, I mean, just for myself, but I truly believe you would be surprised how many people, if you reach out on a Facebook or Instagram or what have you, how many people will take 5, 10, 15, even 20 minutes to give you a little breakdown, to give you some of that ammunition of information that you need to get you past that gateway. Because like you said, Alex, I mean, no matter what field you're going into, like people want to know that you're smart and intelligent and that you can learn. But the fact is, on the backside of that, I know I have to train you with what I'm doing anyway. So I need to know, are you going to pick this thing up as quick as you say? Now, great. Your intelligence does matter in an interview, but it less about intelligence and more about what I've seen, more soft skills. Are you a good team player? Are you adaptable? Especially in this environment, no matter what environment you're in, are you adaptable? Can we throw some change on you? And are you going to trip? Or can we throw some change on you and you're just going to be like, hey, this is what we're doing for today? Are you a team player? Can you collaborate well? You know what I mean? If you can't collaborate, you might be smart and, you know what I'm saying, very humble, but you can't collaborate well. Well, I can't put you on the team. You know what I mean? Exactly. And so the stuff that we're talking about and the things that I've seen in talking to peers, people who I know make well over 100K, myself, jobs I've interviewed that make 100K, it was less about my intelligence of what I did that helped, but it was more about, can I be a team player? Am I able to pick up this information and run? And that's what these degrees kind of tell a person. Hey, he can learn. How quick can he learn? Oh, he picks up things pretty quick, and he has some innovation. But to be honest, I could have read 3 books over 90 days and probably still flex that same muscle. Now, you did mention something that I think people often miss in preparation for the interview. And you said, hey, you want to get prepared for the conversation. Now, conversation, people don't realize, hey, it's just a conversation. Don't get me wrong. If conversation is hinging your hopes on 150 and your other conversation is 50 and you got plans and you got goals, don't get me wrong. But at the end of the day, all the stuff we're doing, all the skills we have, everything we're doing is built around how well can you have a conversation? How well can you articulate yourself? Now,
how will you feel with the team as well?
Right. How well will you feel it to the team? And you learn different skills to communicate, learn different ways to have your emotional intelligence. What are ways that you found to help calm a person and that you've seen kind of work to really prepare a person for the conversation that is the interview?
A lot of times when I'm bringing a person into an interview, I understand because, of course, with being in talent acquisition, it could be a nervous situation,
right?
Regardless of who's being interviewed. I interview VPs, CEOs, everyone from C-suite down to janitors and custodians. So everyone has this need to feel validated, to feel welcome, to feel accepted, regardless of the position. For example, I interviewed a plethora of nurse practitioners and physicians, and a lot of people look at those positions and think that, oh man, these people are full of themselves.
Right.
They think that they just know everything, and that they're kind of like hard to get to know or even have a softer side.
Right.
When I get on the phone with them or bring them in, all of that facade is gone, and they become the person who everyone else is. Who they show some nervousness. They become softer. Their voice doesn't become as harsh, because at the end of the day, everybody is wanting to be accepted. They want, even with all the credentials.
Ooh.
So there's more of a culture fit than anything. So when you're evaluating a doctor, you're not looking at. I'm sorry, one second. Miles, go fix something, okay? Go upstairs and fix. Thank you. Sorry about that.
No problem.
They've already been in school to understand what they need to learn.
Right.
So at this point, it's not about me questioning you on how to work up a patient. I don't know anything about that. I can't just discern one good doctor from another, because that's not my profession. At that point, it's about how well will you be to a culture fit for the organization. And for me, I don't have a problem with I feel as a recruiter, as an HR professional, to break the ice as much as I can. Mm-hmm. So I use humor as my way to break ice.
Right.
I speak about how they feel, or make a joke about the sky, or just anything. Mm-hmm. I think humor is the best icebreaker when it comes to people in those type of situations, and then always reminding them over and over again that this is a two-way conversation. You have power in this conversation. It's not a one-way street, because that's where a lot of people get confused, is that they think that they just sitting there to get grilled, and that's where a lot of the pressure and anxiety and tension comes from. But you're just as much have the same right as they do to be there. You earn the right to be in front of them, and you got selected to be there. So you have just as much power to ask as many questions as possible. And that's another way for you to stand out when you are interviewing, versus just sitting there taking question after question, and at the end, when they ask, do you have any other questions, you say, no, I'm good. That is one way to eliminate yourself. Even if you met all the qualifications of what they're looking for in a resume, you still are there to interview them, because it has to be a fit on both sides of the aisle. It has to be. That's why when we were promoting this, I made a caption of one of the videos to say that I want to give you information and turn the interview process away from a one-way street to a 4-lane highway.
Exactly.
And what I mean by that is, it can't be just one-sided, because you still, at the end of the interview, they still have to offer you the position.
Exactly.
So that means you still have the power to accept it or deny it. The power ultimately ends in your hands.
Yeah.
You have the ability to say yes or no. And if you make that decision based on an ill-informed conversation, you can't blame them. Because you have the ability, you have the time to prepare, you have the time to ask, you have the place to ask. And that's your right. You should come in there with the same bravado that they're coming to you with.
And that's one of the things that even myself, I interview. I've been on both sides of the camp. So I've interviewed, I've hired people, and when I hired people, I didn't play any games. I didn't play any. People knew if they was getting hired from me, they knew they was gonna get a call. The same way, be like, hey, I'm gonna let you know right now, you'll probably get an email. It ain't working. Just because I've been on that side, and people be like, man, I wonder what happened. I'm gonna tell you why. You know what I mean? It's not because of X. I'm gonna tell you specifically. I don't want you to get it from an email. I don't want you out there. These are some things that you can work on. And I mean, in some cases, it was just simply I didn't think you would fit well with the company, but based on what the company would. And that's only fair because it could be nothing wrong with you, but you might not mix with the company. But at
That's true.
the same time, I know from a financial aspect, one thing that was a game changer for me was that, I mean, when you don't have the financial pressure, when you might not be in debt or whatever, or when you maybe you interviewing with 4 or 5 different people, you're you go into these interviews, you more looking at it like, oh, okay. I mean, if I don't get this, okay, I'll be okay. You know what I mean? And the fact is, whether you have a good financial background or whether you have 5 offers, you need to walk in as if you have 5 offers.
Exactly.
And the point is, because one thing that I will say, and I want you to kind of chime in as well, one thing that I had to really get very methodical and intentional about as I grew was I answered a lot of interview questions that I don't even think I fully understood what they was asking. And like the way I am now, if I'm speaking to somebody, I'll listen to it and I'll have an answer, but then I'm like, well, just so I'm making sure I'm answering, are we talking about X, Y, and Z? Oh no, I made this. Yeah, I know my quote unquote question portion is supposed to be at the end of this thing, but if I don't know, I'm not answering to give you something on what I think. I'm going to make sure we're on the same page. What I found out on people that offer me jobs that I might have turned them down or whatever, or I didn't work out, they appreciated that because they said, if you're like that in an interview, I can imagine what it's like working with you because you're going to make sure there's no miscommunication. You know what I'm saying? Exactly. If I'm giving you direction, you're going to make sure you understand what I want from you and what you need. And a lot of people, what they think. You ain't got to think. Just clarify. It's okay. You know what I mean? If they don't like you for that, oh well. You know what I mean?
So that's one thing about people. That's one thing that that kind of differentiates a leader versus a boss, because a leader can take criticism from his team and from other peers. A boss is just going to say, "Hey, go make 3 or 4 widgets." Not going to give you anything, and then put pressure on you, but indication of how to do it. A leader is going to not only actually do it, but be able to show you how to do it and be able to take, you know what I'm saying, allow you to ask questions for further clarification. And if you mess up, everybody has a possibility when they're not going to do their best, but be open to constructive criticism on both ends. So being able to look at it from both sides and understand that it can you can definitely learn from those type of experiences, for sure.
What would you say? Because I definitely mentioned just things from myself that from an interview portion, I realized the confidence was there, but the confidence more has to deal with internal than anything else. But I did learn that as you get in the industry, if you're going into a new industry, the best thing you can do before you interview your first time is go talk to anybody who will talk to you that's been in that industry, because you're new. And the point of that is not only will they guide you and give you the good tips, but they're going to give you wisdom from the things of the mistakes that they made through that time of growth. What are some things that you would say are kind of common errors that you think people actually make through the interview conversation that you're like, these are easily avoidable?
Definitely. Great question. I would say the biggest thing is getting too personal. That is the biggest faux pas I can ever imagine when you go into an interview. When it goes away from how you can bring what you offer to the table to, I was at my grandkid's graduation and it was just I was so happy that he crossed the stage. I'm like, that's good. I'm happy that your little cousin graduated.
Right.
But that has absolutely nothing to do with this position.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So when it gets too personal, and then I've been in interviews where they've literally cried. And I was like, okay. All right, you're really invested.
Right.
But it's they went so personal that it hit something internally where they can't even control their emotions.
Okay.
And that's where I said that would be the biggest mistake people make. And actually, there are interviewers out there, recruiters out there who would intentionally try to get you there.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So if you have enough self control to not go there,
right?
You know, and it's funny, it's crazy, almost a little methodical for people to do that, understanding where the person who they're interviewing is just trying to be as personable as possible, trying to show you who they are without going too deep. But also, it's like they're trying to play like a mental game with you.
Right.
So I don't like that that approach. But when it goes so personal and it goes away from the conversation of understanding what you're trying to do, understand what the company is,
right.
I think that's where people go left, and that it knocks out completely your resume. It knocks out completely your what you've done previously that makes you the top tier candidate for this position, because you want to come in and talk about everything that's not about the position.
Yeah.
That, I would say, is the biggest thing that can knock people out in going into anything.
And I mean, one of the things that you were saying, I was just thinking, hey, what are things that I've seen, or just from my personal experience? One thing that I noticed is with experience, you should be a lot more self-aware to the point that you know your experiences. You should know them so much. And if you don't when you think about a question or an answer or whatever's being thrown at you, if you can't really think of an experience, then I would start to question, what are you doing when you go to work every day? So are you actually working? Are you take on some projects? Because when you take on those extra things, like I'm a big person of I'm not a step ladder person. I built my own resume. I built my own step ladder. I gave myself promotion. Every time I left a job, I had promotion. But when I was at a job, I would learn so many the ins and outs of every other role that I thought I might like. I would be able to speak to projects and things that I did that involved to the level that that person might have to answer for, so that when I went into an interview and I'm trying to promote, I can speak on that level. I wonder, one thing that I saw that just from peers and even just being in the room, I noticed that the message is oftentimes a lot clearer, they're a lot more straight to the point. They have enough information, but to your point, they know that fine line of, hey, I know how to be humorous at the appropriate moment to let them know that I'm human, but also know how to be clear in my message enough that they understand, hey, this person means business. And that was one thing that's different for me as you start to go up in the ranks, that it starts to get a little bit more tight-knit, clear-cut, you know what I mean? For lack of a better term, instead of saggy jeans, it's more pressed, creased up jeans.
Right.
You know what I mean? And that's what I mean. Like people, like you said, they're not going off on different tangents. They're clear about their message. They know why they're here. They're okay if you go a different way. They understand that's business. And it's not personal. And I would even say a person like myself, I go so far as to say I have the job until I do something that takes me out the running. Like
that's
you,
that
recruiter didn't take me out the running. That I declined myself for the job. And sometimes I went in and I was just trying to get the reps in of the interview, that I was like, man, I really don't want to have to tell these people no. So it'd be easier if I do good enough that they enjoyed their time, but I do bad enough that, hey, they decide to go a different way.
I understand.
What would you say going into this next level when you think about it, especially during this pandemic? What are things just literally that people really need to focus on? Because don't get me wrong, I do think there's some gray and there's some some looseness with it, because you have to interview different. You have to interview on phone and through video chat. What are some things that a person in this pandemic, you got 20-some million people looking for jobs, that, hey, this is how you would put your best foot forward coming into the interview?
I would say be as how would I say? You almost want to over exaggerate your emotions. Like when there's like you're doing like a phone screen, let's say looking at it from a phone screen perspective, and they just calling you to screen you out for another shorter list. Like when you're on a phone screen, you shouldn't be talking like, okay, well, I do this, I do that. You want to smile as if they are looking at you, and that automatically raises your tone and your inflection, so they can hear your confidence. They can hear your enthusiasm. They can hear your promise of what you can bring to the company. And with via doing it via video chat, you almost want to over exaggerate your facial expressions. You want to be more smiling. You want to be more open to, using your eyes and your, being more present than you would otherwise, because they have to take that as the basis of who you are. Mm-hmm. They have to take that as, okay, I need to make my decision based on who this person is. Only seeing them from a camera phone or a laptop camera. So you have to be very emphatic in what you're trying to do. Over exaggerate. Look them in their eyes, even if it's, video. Being very personable, not breaking concentration, and just being very and almost animated.
Yeah.
You want to just let them know that I'm very excited, because that's the only way that you can transcribe how you feel and to get them to understand, because they're not face to face. They can't see you from the top down, and they can't see you backing up or, doing anything else. So you really have to take it up a notch, so they can really get through to them that you're serious about it, that you are capable and that you're excited. Because at the end of the day, they want to know that you're excited. They want to feel your excitement. And even if you are nervous, because there's some people who are just bad test takers,
right?
And that's understandable. There's people like that in the world. But if to take control of that situation for a person who is bad at test taking, state that up front. Just like how Eminem in the movie 8 Mile, he put all his stuff, all his trash on the street at the beginning. So you can't ding me for what you already know.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? I told I'm doing my best I can. You've already given it. I may be a little nervous, but I'm gonna work through it. Let's go. You know what I'm saying? So, and it's all about being upfront, being honest, and being transparent. And I guarantee you, they'll respect that. They'll be more sensitive to when you say, "Oh, I'm sorry," or you got to think about something, because that's fine. That's what's going to happen. Everybody isn't going to be coming in there hard as nails, ready to just give a 40-minute presentation. Everybody isn't geared like that, but everybody can be honest. Everybody can be forthcoming. Everybody can be, transparent, and that speaks volume versus saying, "Oh, I'm fine. Next question." That stuff isn't gonna fly well, because you're not taking that energy and trying to mirror that in the workplace. It's like me asking you, "Do you need help with a project?"
Right.
Understanding you're drowning, but you're still not asking for help.
Right.
So it's going to take twice the manpower, twice the money to do the same exact thing. Exactly. I don't want that. You know what I'm saying?
No, it definitely makes sense. And to your point, with you're in the video chat land. If you're on YouTube or in Zoom calls, just a tip: if you're trying to look someone in the eye, as somebody who does videos a lot, you look at the eye of the camera. A lot of times, that's how that translates, and that person connects with you a lot better. I don't always get how it works, but I do. If you ever watch a YouTube video and the person's not looking in the eye, you do look. It is just them. It comes off different as a video than if they were looking directly at the eye of the camera. If you're trying to convey those thoughts, so good. Yeah. So so we're in the pandemic. We have it. You researching. We went through a myriad of things. What are your thoughts on how a person really preps? So can you practice? I know I practice for interviews, and it just helps me when the question comes. Yeah, the question doesn't necessarily come like I practice it, but I have my answers together to the point where I can tweak a couple things and move through it a lot smoother.
Mm-hmm.
From your side of things, as somebody who's sat there, can you tell the difference from not practice, practice, and rehearsed?
Yes. When someone has practiced and rehearsed it, some of the same side but different sides of the same coin. But when they've done their research and they've practiced and said those questions and practice answering them, they come off more confident. Even if they're nervous, they come off more confident because they're understanding that they're, like you said, like there's a question that's going to speak to what are your strengths. Give me an instance where you had to overcome an obstacle, and understanding that there's a way of how they're going to want that question answered. It's called the STAR method.
Right.
So it's like you state the problem, a task, answer it, and you know what I'm saying, come to the conclusion. You know what I'm saying? It's like a certain way you answer those behavioral based questions. And when you do that, you are able to speak to exactly what they're asking without going around the question or not answering the question directly. So definitely when they're able to speak to, it's like someone, if I'm asking you a question in an interview saying, what color is the sky? And you say, oh, I'm expecting you to say blue. But you say, oh, the clouds are there, the sun may be out. Oh, the trees look pretty. It smells pretty. It's nice outside. I'm like, you didn't answer the question. You know what I'm saying? Like,
at the 15 minutes, we still don't know what the answer is.
Right. So that's the difference to me in understanding someone who's done their research, who's done who's practiced, who's prepared for interviews. So they understand how to answer those specific type of questions and answer them in the least amount of time possible, with the most pertinent information to get their point across what the interviewer is asking.
Yeah. One thing that I found kind of grace in this process is if somebody called you in for an interview and you understand, even now, I mean, even more so now, how many resumes does really goes to a file, like 500 to a posting? Out of that 500 plus, or I mean, it's probably more, but out of that 500 plus, maybe you probably pick 10, 8, you know what I mean? I know most people try to get on that 7-week turnaround time, but they try to get as many as they can, but they usually keep the number pretty concise. And it's usually off those first few. But the one thing that I always found interesting was no matter what I think of myself, this person liked my resume or saw something in my resume enough that they like, I got to interview this person. It wasn't, you know what I mean? Hey, I know what I'm getting with this. Let me pull them in. No, it's something about however you present yourself on paper that they thought these recruiters, in my opinion, come in with the idea that, hey, I'm going to hire this person until I find a reason that I can't hire or I can't move them along. I know that was one of the things that people kind of, again, I interview a little differently. Like we interview, if I find the person on the first one, I'm not going to hold out and keep interviewing people. I'm just going to go with what I got. But I always thought that was interesting to take confidence that, hey, this person wanted to spend their time to pull you out from whatever. They thought you were whatever qualified enough to come do this job. Now it's your chance after they done pulled you out, this needle in the haystack. Now it's your chance to help them take you across the bridge and close the deal. So when I say that, when you think about how do people close the deal, how can a person really kind of close the deal? I have a couple of things that I always like to share, but I would like to get your input on and insight. What is good ways a person can kind of close the deal? And I say that because it's a sales term, but I think
I understand too. I understand because the thing is, I've been in I've done sales for almost 10 years prior to becoming an HR. So understanding the sales process, if you think about it from a very macro view, all jobs have some type of sales in it.
Right.
Whether you are in front of a screen by
Exactly.
yourself, whether you selling to a group, whether you're doing X, Y, or Z, every position has some type of salesmanship in it. And in the salesmanship, you all do like the whole idea of that big question of sell me this pen.
Right.
How can you sell somebody a pen? And like, but it's also with the circumstances around that. But also to the end of that conversation is asking for the sale.
Right.
You never leave a sales conversation with someone without asking for the sale.
Right.
And that's it. Even in interviews, you still ask for the job. How do you set yourself apart from everybody who just sat there and took questions, didn't ask many, wasn't brazen enough to say, "Oh,
right.
How do you think I did? What else could I have done better?
Right.
Do you think that I've done well enough to move forward in this position?" Asking those questions, I guarantee you, will raise eyebrows, will put check marks by your name as everybody notes, because they're looking at it as, wow, this person is really confident or is very in tune with what they're looking for within us.
Right.
And not set yourself apart. Ask for the sale. Ask for the job. If you do that, I guarantee you stand out, and then it'll move you further in the conversation.
Yeah, that's a huge piece. I know one thing that well, I do a couple things. One, I always give a card, a handwritten card, and I don't send emails. I always give a card, and my card is just simply addressed thanking them. The card is like 50 cents from Dollar Tree or something like that. But again, when you talk about what sets them apart, they're gonna get the email. I appreciate it. I don't want no email from you. If I give you a card, I hand wrote this. Only thing I'm saying is thank you for your time. I really appreciate it, because that's what I'm appreciative for. Like, I don't know if you're gonna give me a job or not, but I know you took some time out your day to sit and have a conversation with me about the role. The second thing I always what I kind of did over the past few years was I always ask them what's the most recent book they've always read, just to challenge them. And just to see what type of people I'm dealing with too. Some people it'd be like an article. Some people it'd be like a video they read that they thought was thought provoking. And then the other thing is, I'm a big person about feedback. And I'm like, if I've been subtly, indirectly telling you I'm big about feedback throughout this interview, then I would be wrong if I didn't give you a chance to see what that looks like. And so I always ask for feedback. And I know people's default is they'll always tell me what I did well. And I always tell them, hey, I definitely appreciate the things I do well, but what will really help me is if you have some constructive feedback to share. And some, it pauses them. Like, I've had people who literally, man, I don't really know what to say. And then there are some that, like, I've had like maybe one or two people out this whole time that actually gave me constructive feedback. And I'm like, but I do know it sends a jolt in the process, because people aren't expecting you to ask for that type of feedback. And that's essentially kind of what you're saying, asking for the sale. Like, the one thing you should not do when you leave an interview, I think, is be questioning anything. Just like if you play sports, leave it all out on the floor. If you know what I'm saying, you only get one career, you only get one life. I mean, I'm not saying go ham on the people, but you should leave where you have some resolve. Like, hey, I thought the conversation went well. They might thought the conversation went well. They might have concerns. You should know where those concerns lie, but you should know if they have concerns about you. And you should have a pretty good gauge about whether or not you feel confident going forward, or do they feel confident going forward with you. So those are all fair pieces. I think when we think about messages that we got coming into getting our careers going and trying to become adults in this world, we got a lot of messages that said, hey, just shut up and be thankful. And this piece, if you make it, to your point, all subtly we've been talking about, if you make it more interactive, not only will you get further likely in the process if you do it consistently, but you'll also have clarity on where you stand. And I think that is because even if they didn't like you, you should know why they didn't like you, because that's what's going to help you be better for the next conversation you have. Like, if nothing else, you should learn something from each interview to go forward.
Exactly. Something you spoke of earlier, and when we were talking about as giving a thank you card. I think that, like I said, that's another way to stand out outside of the many things we've already talked about. A handwritten thank you card.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? If you I think, like I said, the email that can go
play it out.
Play, like, you know what I'm saying? That's not the wave anymore.
It's not.
You know,
and people are still doing it.
Take the time to sit down and write one. And if you can't write, have somebody else that has legible writing write it for you. You know, it's all about, having that personal connection.
Right.
Because when I got my first card from a candidate who I interviewed that didn't get the job,
right,
they sent me a card anyway.
Yeah.
And that spoke volumes to me, because they're looking at me as they're trying to build a relationship, which they did.
Right.
I never forgot that person. To the fact that when another position came up, that was the first person on my mind.
Right.
And guess what? They got that position because they went above and beyond, even when the situation didn't lend themselves to them.
Right.
They still pressed forward and did what they were supposed to do.
Yeah.
And that's what it's about. Like, if you can't hand deliver that card to that person, send it in the mail.
Right.
You know, like, whatever you got to do to make that personal connection. Because at the end of the day, we look at thousands of resumes, we look at, thousands of applications. But what makes one person different is that personal connection. We're all humans at the end of the day. So we, as humans, thrive on human interaction.
Mm-hmm.
A piece of paper isn't going to give you the interaction that you need to be successful.
Yeah.
The personal contact, personal note, the intent behind it. Even if you don't get the job, just saying thank you, I appreciate it. Maybe sometime in the future we cross paths again, and keeping up with that person. That's what sets you apart.
Mm-hmm. No, it's phenomenal. That plus the consistency of it. But like I said, when I thought about, hey, how am I going to take? And I'm a relatively frugal person. I'm always looking at the cost benefit analysis. But I'm like, it's 50 cents. Like, it's $1 for the card. It was general. I wrote it in there. But I'm like, if somebody gave me a card, I'm like, man, this person took some energy, because you had to go to the store, you had to, you had to take some time, and then, like, for me, I always take it with me to the interview. So I'm giving you the card, even if you ain't giving me a job. Like,
exactly.
You know what I'm saying? Like, you can go a different way. That's cool. And leave it, leave it as it is. But like you said, it sticks out to the person because everybody, they're doing generic things. And in this day and age, it may be something else. It maybe you. I know one guy. I did send an email. He didn't give me a job. I sent the email probably a couple months after, just to send him congratulations, because I knew in that interview he said, hey, his baby was doing 2 months. I still had his email, and just to send him, hey man, I hope the baby's doing well. Congratulations, first time father. Do I want to work for the org? I don't know. Maybe at some other time, but it's the point of have some integrity about yourself. Look for ways that it's not always about just trying to get the role. Sometimes it might be that person connects you to something totally different.
Exactly.
And they might not even be at that org, but they're like, man, that was so impressive. And he remembered, or she remembered this. That's how you know you had fruitful conversation, you had a fruitful connection, and you just never know where it lends itself. Like your example, the gentleman ended up being at the org, but that card probably said more about or solidified things in the conversation that you're like, Dad, this is an awesome person. We might need to reach back and try to get him in somewhere. And that happened. So good. So as we begin to to wrap up, before I always like people to try to share some encouragement. But first, Alex, you said you do some consulting, some one-on-one coaching type thing to help people prep for the interview. Tell us a little bit about that. How people can connect with you if they were interested in that piece.
Definitely. You can reach out to me via Facebook, LinkedIn. It's a great place to connect with me. Right now, I'm at my threshold on LinkedIn at 30,000
Yeah,
connections.
I saw
But, but you can still follow me. Shameless plug. But you can still follow me and still message me and follow my content and see what's going on with me and connect with me that way. Also, I have a YouTube channel as well.
Okay.
It's called Your Personal HR Guy. And I made a few videos there that speaks to resume creation, formatting, what to do before interview, what to do during the interview, how to get your LinkedIn page to where you're not looking so much for a job, but the jobs are looking for you. Don't you know that lending tree commercial? Like, just sit down and banks coming to you.
Right.
You can have that same experience on LinkedIn. I get like 600 to 700 views of my profile every week because of how I utilize the algorithms on LinkedIn to get people to look at me. And that's how I'm able to utilize those skills to help people get to their next job, give them advice on like offer negotiation, like where to start, where to when and when not to speak about numbers. And just all that stuff. You can email me through that. You can also reach out to me via Gmail at yourpersonalhrguy.com. Yeah, those are the main ones. And I have a business number, which is 314-292-9520. So
It's might be on YouTube, so you might get some people out the country. So hey, that's your charges on that. I just put it on there. No, so good. So Alex definitely send me his information and links to connect with you. And you mentioned a couple things that I didn't want to skip over before we get to your encouragement. One, what sites should people actually be using and from LinkedIn? Because as I understand it, you really need to get to 500 people on LinkedIn. Like that's like the first kind of threshold barrier. You got what 30,000 or something,
right?
Yeah. So what would you say is the key to kind of really getting that algorithm on LinkedIn to work for you?
I would say be interactive. Like if you see someone that's saying that because they show messages say, "Oh, this person's birthday is coming up," they prepare automatic message that says, "Say happy birthday to this person." It takes maybe 2 seconds to say congratulations and hit send.
Right.
That message goes straight to that person. They're like, "Oh, this person was thinking about me."
Right. And LinkedIn type it for you.
Exactly. Yeah, all you gotta do is hit 2 buttons, 2 clicks to get down and get there. One thing I think that will propel people forward on using their LinkedIn profile is having a picture on their profile.
A quality picture.
A
quality picture.
A quality picture, not a club picture, not some picture where you was taking with your kid and you edited the kid out, or you edited your mom out, and then you just got a random hand on your left shoulder. You know what I'm saying? That kind of stuff. Having a quality professional photo where you can go to, I don't know if Sears is open anymore, but it's a lot of people that just take professional headshots.
Yeah.
Getting that done, even just having a nice picture where you're looking presentable speaks volumes. A lot of people don't put a picture on there because they think that it's going to discriminate them, but it actually does worse when you don't have a picture because it means in my opinion, and from my experience on LinkedIn, that you're not engaging with the community because it's a networking community.
Right.
You would never go to a networking event and wear a mask.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Because I can't know who you are if I don't even have a picture to try to associate myself with you with. You know what I'm saying? Definitely getting a picture up there, getting the current picture up there. It shouldn't look like your baby picture in 1983 and you're trying to apply for a job in
Yeah.
2020. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Having a recent relevant picture and having your profile up to date.
Mm-hmm.
That's a key factor when people have only one position and they've been working for 20 years at 30 different jobs.
Mm-hmm.
Now you don't want your LinkedIn profile to read exactly as your resume does, but
Right.
it should at least have the places where you worked, your background, any education that you want to put there, and just so people can get a glimpse to want to inquire more about you.
Right.
Now, as far as places where I think that people should look, that's a lot depending on the jobs they're looking for and the industry that they're trying to go into. Career Builder and Monster are really good for blue collar jobs, more manufacturing, labor jobs, construction. Indeed is the largest one. I think that everyone should have an Indeed
Right.
account because they send you jobs based on your qualifications and on your resume that you upload.
And
And
they got people
LinkedIn,
working in the backgrounds too on there.
oh yeah, definitely. They're the hugest resource for people to find talent, and LinkedIn, to say the least, is the number one hiring website.
Uh-huh.
Um, a lot of people go to LinkedIn to view someone before they even bring them in for an interview.
Mm-hmm.
I do that. Like
Right.
I would go to see what your profile looks like so I can get a little bit more insight of who you are before you even come in.
Mm-hmm.
So it just LinkedIn, getting a profile there, being active on that, um, and Indeed for definitely for white collar jobs that you're trying to move that are more professional, like accounting, engineering, things of that nature.
Cool. Cool. So we're in this pandemic. I know I always try to encourage people to tell them to keep going. And I don't know where each person is right now, but if you're watching this and you're maybe you've been laid off or you think you're about to get laid off, or maybe you were tired of your job anyway and you were trying to move forward. The fact is, whatever you want to do from a career standpoint, you can do it. So
Mhm.
Alex, as somebody who works in HR, how would you encourage individuals that are, especially right now, searching, trying to transition to that next role, or maybe be in the process? What are some things that you would offer from an encouragement standpoint to help them through that process?
I would say stay current on your skill set. Go to YouTube is the library of being able to connect with resources and with people who you can learn from. Um, LinkedIn has what's called LinkedIn Learning Solutions or something, where they provide free training for just for staying current in your industry. Never stop learning about what you got, the industry that you're in. That is the best way to one keep up with every industry that you're in, so that you be ready to answer those questions succinctly when you're in the interview, and also doing volunteer work when you're not working. That's also a way of making to keeping yourself active, continuing to fill that gap on your resume. Because
Right,
if you have a gap on your resume, they're going to ask what did you do. You
right.
can easily speak to, I did volunteer work. I was able to do consulting. I was able to do videos to keep people informed on how to navigate their financial situation or
Right.
anything like that. Staying active is a great way to like break the monotony of looking for a job and never taking a day off.
Mhm.
Looking for a job is a job.
Yeah.
You have to view it that way. If you don't, you automatically begin to become set and become complacent because you feel like you're not being productive. And that's another way that I feel that you can be to maintain that grit,
Yeah.
maintain that tenacity. So when the opportunity comes, you're attacking it full force.
So one thing, again, one probably last nugget. I remember you put out. Uh, I can't remember if you put it out on LinkedIn or Facebook, but I remember, and it always stuck with me that you were like, "Hey, if you're looking for a job, every 10,000 is the month, you figure about every $10,000 that you're trying to get is a month that it may take for you to turn that job over.
That's very good.
That really just kind of stuck out to me. And when I talk to people and they say they just got a new job, and you always hear the end story. But if you actually dig into some of these people and they're close to you, and how long you been looking? Oh, it took me I'm like, oh. So the data, I'm a big data person. I was like, this is interesting that it measured up. And you could clarify it for me. What was it?
That's very much spot on. Like the rule of thumb within recruitment is that normally for every $10,000, it equates to a month of searching for that next position.
Every $10,000 you're trying to make. So if you're looking for a $10,000 salary, it should take you about a month to get. If you're looking for a 20, 2 months. If you're looking for 100,000, that's
it could take close to a year.
Yeah.
If you look at it from this perspective of like a CEO, depending on this level of the organization, to say it takes a long time to hire that kind of person.
Yeah.
So let's say they make 200,000 plus. It's going to take a long time because not only are those types of candidates highly sought after, but they are visiting and traveling, and they have schedules that they have to attend to. And not only that, but the people who are interviewing those high level people also have busy schedules. If I'm trying to interview a VP of IT, that person's hiring manager is going to be a CEO, executive vice presidents, and the coordination and of schedules, because you're not speaking directly to that person. You're speaking to their EAs. You're speaking to their AAs. So it's a lot of time invested in the levels that they have to go through. Plus, depending on the size of the organization, they have to go through board approval. So it takes a long time to get through that process. So keeping in mind that kind of rule of thumb, and the way I think to kind of like try to minimize that window is, like I said, doing all the things we talked about before, doing your research, networking, because one of the things that we touched on earlier is that there are millions of people that are applying for jobs, that same job.
Yeah.
Back in the 70s and 60s, you had to mail your application in, or you had to go. The talent pool was way smaller. It was very much local. Now there's a person in Bangladesh that can apply to the same job that you applied. They're down the street from you. So again, setting yourself apart. Doing your due diligence to set yourself apart is definitely the key.
Well, Alex, it's definitely been a pleasure, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. Hopefully got some wisdom there. Again, thankful for all 1,200 plus people in here engaging, asking questions. Again, we're trying to get you to whatever your next level is. Keep engaging, keep asking questions. If you're watching this on YouTube, again, subscribe to the channel, like, comment. You can get your questions answered to Alex. He's going to give me his information. If you're watching on YouTube, it's going to be in the description below. If you're in the Facebook group, we're going to go ahead and put that in post for tomorrow because it's late for you guys now, or it's late here. But regardless, we want you to connect. And again, Alex, he does consulting, so feel free to reach out. Sometimes you might need, you don't know what you don't know. And
exactly,
these are investments in yourself. It's not to just puff up. It's about getting you to that next level. And that's all this piece is about. So until next time, guys, we'll have a debt-free next week. And can't wait to see you then.